Welcome to the After Dark podcast with Anthony James and Konrad. Make sure to subscribe so you don't miss an episode.
Hello, and welcome to the After Dark podcast. I'm Anthony James, and that's Konrad.
Hello.
We are here to talk about episode 3, season 2 of Dark, and I'm looking forward to it. What about you, Konrad?
Yeah, this was a good episode. I texted you I actually don't remember when I texted you, like 3 days ago, to say I think this is the saddest episode we've seen so far, and I'm looking forward to discussing exactly why.
Sad as in, like, not cool, or...
Yeah, sad as in, I'm someone who grew up in the 90s when sad was a sort of disparaging term. It was very heartbreaking in places, this episode. It was probably, I won't spoil it before we get into it, but probably the best dramatic episode, I'm going to say. I'm trying to think back to see if there's anything else that comes to mind. I'm sure there is, but this was a really good dramatic episode.
Yeah, I agree with you. Can't wait to get into it. Have you been up to anything strange or startling this week?
I'm just, I worked an 18-hour shift like 2 days ago, but that's neither exciting nor particularly interesting, so I'm going to say no.
I just asked you if there's anything strange or startling going on. Any listeners that we have that come from Northern Ireland will recognise that phrase. My driving instructor used to, every time I got in the car to do a lesson with him, my driving instructor used to go, anything strange or startling?
That's great. That would immediately put my mind at ease for some driving.
Yeah, and I got test first time. You know, he was a good driver. He was a good driving instructor.
Yeah, clearly.
Yeah. All right. Okay. So make sure you subscribe on the YouTube channel if you haven't already. Make sure you subscribe to the podcasting apps. If you want to contribute to the show, we have a tip jar. We bought our microphones with it, and we know the microphones are too good. You could hear our clicking, our mouse clicks all last week. There was a few people comment about that. We'll try to do our best to fix that. Most people didn't seem to care, but even if it soothes one soul, we'll try not to do it. Okay, so apart from that, I think we're ready to go. We've got a big, long, great episode today. We're also going to have a question and answers. I think we've got about 10 to 11 questions this Saturday for you, Konrad, so you'll be enjoying those. Yep, it'll be great. I don't know if there's any for me. Hopefully there are. Okay, so let's just get straight into that.
Yeah, let's do it.
Oh, let's break it down!
The episode opens with a young Helga in the blue bunker room, which we assume is 86. I think we've sort of deduced that that's it. I don't think we were ever told 100% that was 86, but we've deduced anyway that it is.
You were told it because Jonas is in that room. Jonas sees that room in like episode 9 of last season when he's in the 80s.
Oh, that's right. They take him away there.
Yeah, they take him.
Yeah, okay, yeah. So yeah, I think that still would count as deduction, but 100%, we're pretty much 100% certain this is the 80s. And Noah is loading Helga up into a time-travel-y cupboard thing that he's created.
He's done some work on it in the downtime between 86 and 87. Yeah,
so I should actually remind us that this is about sort of I think it was November, and now this is June. So about 7 months have gone by. Yeah. So that's he's been hard at work, that's for sure.
Yeah, he's actually got it working now for one thing.
Yeah. Well, it was always working. It's just he's keeping them alive.
Working to a degree.
To a degree, yeah. Okay, what did you think of this opening?
So it was a really interesting way of basically establishing how Helga ends up essentially working for Noah. The whole like sort of "we are your home, we're watching over you" thing kind of implies that Helga has been fully indoctrinated into, if not Noah, then potentially also Adam's cult of followers here, because obviously they've been, I guess, looking after him for the last 8 months, and also we see the origins of the TikTok here as well.
We do, yes, actually, and that's kind of like a prediction you got right, actually, from last week, because you did say that this is going to be the onus of him sort of having the TikTok. I think you were saying maybe it was something to do with the noise of, what was it, the noise of the machine in the tunnel underneath.
It was when Stranger Jonas opened the portal that initially sucked Helga through. I thought that he would have maybe heard some of the clockwork of that. So, I mean, I'm happy to take the points, don't get me wrong, but I feel like this maybe might fall into that unsatisfying orange score territory.
Yeah, it probably is. Like, you were right that he did get it from sort of this experience, but not the exact same way as you said.
Yeah.
What do you think about the design of this particular time machine?
It looks very... It looks very kind of rudimentary to me, and I feel like that's kind of by design almost. Like the Tannhaus is kind of almost sort of posited as like an artist in the sort of Baroque nature of the time machines he produces, whereas this one, even though it seems like functionally it does pretty much exactly the same thing, it's very sort of industrial. It's just like essentially a barrel with a chair in it that that you stick some cesium-137 into the back of, and it sends people through time. So yeah, it's very starkly different to the Tannhaus time machine.
It is, but I did notice that the cesium little what do you call it, like cartridge that he's putting it in with was almost the identical to the Tannhaus cartridge as well.
Yeah, it was.
So what's your thoughts on that?
Well, I don't know enough about modern science to say whether those kind of capsules for storing radioactive material actually exist. So assuming that they don't, it's probably a safe bet to say wherever they come from, Noah and Adam and co are getting them from the same place that Claudia is getting them from. Potentially somewhere in the future. Okay.
Awesome. So then from there, we get, after the credits, we get an opening of Doris.
Yeah.
She's having a good time.
Doris and Agnes up to no good.
Up to no good, yeah. So sort of they're having a bit of a good time here, and then Claudia walks in.
They get rumbled. Apparently they haven't heard of locking doors in this household, which, if you're going to have an illicit homosexual affair in the 50s, I feel like a locked door might be a good idea, like, at some point.
Yeah, well, yeah. The key being that in the 50s, they didn't seem to be really minding. I suppose she's in her own house, and Claudia's maybe meant to be at school or something. I don't know where Claudia's meant to be. Anyway, but locked door probably would have saved them a little bit of their blushes there. So Claudia comes in. Agnes pays her for her silence, basically.
Yeah, exactly. Pays her on fruit drops, which that would definitely work on me.
Yeah, for of course. And then Agnes sort of packs up her things, and she's got a few errands to run, a few things to do.
Yes, she does, as we will see throughout this episode. I liked the every family has its secrets as Agnes is trying to calm Doris down, which is a bit of a you don't say kind of moment in the script. And also, I don't know if this is deliberate or not. I feel like it probably was, but when Agnes leaves, she says "you're beautiful" to Doris, which feels like a little mirror of what Ulrich says to Hannah in the first episode. Sort of, it implies a certain distance in the relationship. Like, she doesn't actually love her, so all she can do is comment on her physical appearance because she's doing all of this under instruction.
True, but and also she is Ulrich's grandmother, so it's sort of a parallel there as well.
Yeah.
But what are you implying, that also Ulrich was under instruction when he?
Hannah? I think Ulrich was just didn't have any kind of affection for Hannah beyond the physical. Yeah. So and this is just a mirror of that, saying that Agnes is doing this because she's being told to do it. So she can't bring herself to sort of make any kind of grand declarations of love, and it has to be a pure comment on the physical.
Awesome. Okay. I think I would agree with you. It sort of does allude to her having some secret goings on. And I think that's sort of compounded as well with what she gets up to in this episode.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, so then we get the title card. It's Helga walking back to his the Doppler mansion, and it says 4 days till the apocalypse. It's the 23rd of June, 1954.
Yep, we're getting close.
We're getting this ticking away. It is following the same pattern of every episode's a day as it did in the first series.
Yeah.
So also again, they didn't put the this is going to be a common thing in this series, but this season, but they don't put the German name of the episode up. So
yeah,
the episode is Ghost. So our new thing is that Konrad tries to translate it because he's got a high level of doing German till he was 16.
Well practiced in directing German men to beaches in Mallorca.
That's pretty good.
Yeah.
I mean, I did French. I only got a C because I didn't study, and it was all multiple choice. But I got and they let me read my thing in the audio exam. But I one time asked for like 500 grams of mussels or something in a restaurant in France, and that was the only time I've ever used French.
Did you get 500 grams of mussels?
I didn't weigh them, but,
okay.
but I'd imagine I did.
I mean, I don't know that the requester ever made it to the beach. To be fair, I sent them on their way and they went off walking, but they may have never been heard from again. So
yeah, we're still walking to this day.
Yeah.
Just walking around a roundabout.
Yeah.
Okay, so the episode in English is ghosts.
Yeah.
Do you happen to know that word?
So I would my first thought with this was that it was going to be Geisten, because obviously, to my knowledge, Geist is ghost in German, but there is a line in this episode a bit later where Regina is looking for her book called The Ghost, and she says Der Gespenster. So I might be completely wrong about Geist being the word for ghost.
Okay, so I think you should get the points for this, because Geist is the word for ghost.
Okay.
But it's Geister.
Geister, okay.
Because it's plural, ghosts.
Yeah, so I went for Geisten, but yeah, Geister. Those, yeah, I got my pluralization wrong. I wonder what Geschwenster actually translates to then, or whether that's
maybe spirit or something.
Yeah, possibly. That's interesting. Well, if we have some German listeners or German-speaking listeners, so that'd be interesting to know if what the sort of difference between those words actually is.
Yeah, that'd be really cool. I'm really impressed that you knew what ghost was, or at least the root of ghost, because why did you need that in your GCSE German?
I can't exactly tell you, but it definitely revolves around the Toe Pooper movie Poltergeist. I was definitely talking to someone about that and being like, "Oh, what does that mean?" And I can't actually remember what polter translates to, but from that I learned that Geist means ghost.
Okay, fair enough. That's great.
But I'm being set up for a fall here, though. I'm saying this now. Like, I've got really lucky with the first 3 episodes of this, but it's going to go badly wrong as soon as there's any kind of complex sentence in a title.
Oh, I can't wait. Cannot wait. Right, okay, so then Helga eventually completes his walk up to the house, comes in, he arrives home, and Doris is very happy to see him. But she sort of looks at his ear and everything, and she's obviously a bit horrified as what's happened to her son.
Oh, is this woman's name Doris as well?
No, sorry, it's not Doris. Greta.
Greta. Yeah, I couldn't remember her name for the whole episode. Yeah, she's a hard character to get a read on, Greta, because she definitely seems happy to see him, but there's always that kind of...
She's almost afraid of him a bit.
Yeah, like she seems like a mixture of afraid of him and like just incapable of expressing emotion. She's an interesting character, but yeah, there's definitely still a kind of emotional distance between them, even at the moment where she first sees him and is at her kind of most outgoing. Yeah,
I would agree. There was that one moment, sort of, the kind of, well, there's 2 moments actually in her character that kind of crack through and show that she is a bit of a loving mother, and that's the first season when she's looking for him whenever Ulrich's just beat his head in.
Yeah.
And in this episode as well, during the montage when she's looking at him through the window of his door when he's praying. I think.
He's praying, yeah.
Yeah. So there's little chinks in her armor, but very much she's sort of very of the time, I would say.
I think maybe it is just that she's very prim and proper and doesn't have the tools to sort of express, any kind of complex emotions.
Yeah, maybe it is. Okay, so then we get Egon and Daniel Konrad.
Yeah, Daniel Konrad seems like he's sort of the proto Ulrich here. Like there's a trend of police like this in Vinden, I feel.
Yeah. So Egon's sort of asking him for a bit of advice. He soon learns that Daniel's maybe not the person to go to.
Yeah.
Let off some steam. Plenty of tender buds to be plucked, he says.
Yeah, it's just like, Jesus Christ, honestly. And like, Egon, bless him, he's, I think throughout this episode, I don't even want to say he suspects something is up with Doris. I'm pretty sure he knows exactly what is going on, but he's too nice of a guy to, really, I guess, rock the boat or start asking for a divorce or things like that. But here he's sort of like questioning whether it's normal for this married couple to just never have sex, and Daniel Konrad's advice is like, "Oh, just go out and have sex with someone else." Like, just utterly remorseless.
It is great. I don't know. Like, he's a character that has very little to do so far in the story, but this is the first sort of real opening up as to what he's like. You know?
Yeah, he just smokes and recommends adultery.
Yeah. Although in this scene as well, we did get the great, which actually doesn't really happen too often in Dark. Happens a lot in other TV shows, but the name of the episode drop. So he's talking about he's talking about how people live. He's like, makes you wonder how people live, almost like ghosts.
Oh, I didn't catch that actually. That's good though. Yeah, there's you don't see that often in this.
No, you don't know. And I was expecting like Horatio in CSI. Yeah,
yeah, Led Zeppelin starts playing or whatever. Yeah.
Won't get fooled again.
Or is it The Who? I've just given away that I've never watched CSI. I only know it from the meme.
Yeah, so all CSI, I think all the CSIs have The Who as their soundtracks.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, just like a little bit of trivia for you there. Yeah, but if you've never seen CSI, you should just watch the double episode which Quentin Tarantino directed. That's all I'll say.
Oh wow! How did they get him to do that?
I don't know. Quentin Tarantino is like a huge fan of everything to do with film and TV. He probably he probably loves watching like game shows and stuff, and he probably wants to direct them too.
Yeah, watches like 20 Questions from like 60 years ago, or whenever that show started.
I think Blockbusters is his favourite.
Right, I knew someone who was on Blockbusters once, just as a brief aside. And then
did you?
They explained to me like the school that they got. Yeah, this was when I was like working at a bank when I was like 23, and they explained to me the school they got, and it reminded me that I can't remember anything about the scoring system in Blockbusters.
4 goats and a sheep. But also Stephen Merchant was on Blockbusters, so look that up.
Oh, great.
He's been interviewed and he goes on about how annoying. He's like talking about how unfair it was because he was the single person versus the two.
That always seemed unreasonable to me. We'll have to do a podcast on this.
On Blockbusters, yeah.
Yeah.
We'll actually do, when we finished all of Dark, we'll do a Dark episode of Blockbusters.
Oh, that would be great.
Yeah, we'll both of us will verse each other, and we'll get someone to mediate it.
That'd be great. Yeah, we should definitely do that. Look out for that in the near future. This entire segment has been awful for like 90% of our listeners who have no idea what we're talking about.
Yeah, well, they'll know what we're talking about when we do it.
That's true. Look out for that in the future. Yeah,
that'll be great. Okay, so next scene. Claudia's mom. So Claudia's sort of complaining to Tronta, saying her mom never listens to her. She doesn't think that she thinks that her mom Doris thinks that she doesn't understand anything because she's only a kid. She says, when I have kids, I'll be different.
Yeah, there's an interesting cut between this scene and the next one that maybe suggests that isn't quite how this worked out. The one thing I took from this scene, really, obviously you've got Tronta talking about his mother's brother, which becomes very obvious who that is by the end of the episode. But him being in an orphanage, I don't know whether I'm misreading that, but to me that sounds like Agnes isn't his biological mother. That was my take on that.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, I understand that.
Like,
that take.
Can you put? I don't actually know if you can put kids into an orphanage. Like, if you're an orphan, your parents have died, right? It's not just like, I guess you could be abandoned, but I don't know whether you go into an orphanage if, like, say your mother isn't, or one of your parents isn't, like, fit to look after you for a little while or something like that. But yeah,
I think you do. Yeah, you can.
Okay.
Well, through my job, I know of that happening to certain pupils of mine as well.
Yeah. So, but that was my read. Was that okay? So, Agnes is not his biological mother, which makes some things interesting. Or, well, I suspect she's not.
Well, so when I watched this for the first time, what I always assumed was like, and this obviously gives you this is what I thought at the time. I thought to myself, oh, okay, so maybe she because after this episode we figure out that she is involved in some way in the time travel world.
Yeah.
So I thought to myself, oh, maybe she was like gone in a different time for a while, and like he was, it came back and got him. That's what I thought.
That is the other possibility. Yeah, that she just was away for a while, which also seems totally plausible given what we know about her relationships with certain people.
Yeah, exactly. Also, Tronta. How do I approach this?
Go on, explain what he does.
So
they both seem so severe about this.
So Claudia's really got a bit of power over Tronta here, doesn't she?
Yeah, but neither of them seem to be having any fun.
So basically, Claudia says, like, can I see it or whatever, or now. I think she just goes now.
Yeah.
And then he unzips and he bears his penis to her. Interesting. Yes. What do you think of this?
I mean, there's been like a sort of childish sort of frisson between them, I think, in previous episodes of last season, where she says he looks like James Dean and stuff like that. So my read of it is just that this is kind of the behaviour of sort of two prepubescent or maybe just pubescent sort of children who are sort of attracted to each other but don't really understand anything about adult relationships yet. Yeah. But maybe there's more to it than that. Maybe there is a power dynamic here. I mean, obviously we know that whatever attraction there is between these two turns into a sort of fully fledged sexual relationship once they're adults. Point, yeah. Mm-hmm. To me, this felt like quite the only thing a bit like part about this that felt weird is how severe they both seem. Because neither of them are like smiling or anything. Like Tronte looks like he's going for like a military examination. Like he just stares straight ahead and thinks of England, and it doesn't seem like he's having much fun.
Like what? Maybe like what I can imagine that sort of emotion being maybe he accidentally like walked in her in the bathroom or something, and then she was like, well, I'm getting you back when we're out in the woods. I'm getting you back.
Yeah, he's got to even the score. That's how it works.
Yeah, that's the rules, isn't it?
Yeah.
So also in the scene we get the little drop of information that Tronte's mom has a brother.
Yep. Who could that be, I wonder?
So when you first heard that, did you straight away think Noah?
Yeah, like when this is one of those annoying things where because it happens in the same episode, I don't get to claim to be smart. But as soon as he said it, because I think we discussed previously about my theory, which the show kind of suggested, or Agnes kind of suggested.
Very much the show was leading you down
that Noah was her husband. And you suggested, I think, when we talked about it, that maybe she's not telling the truth. And as soon as Tronte said that her mother had a brother, I was like, son of a bitch. Like, God damn it. You got me.
Yeah. It doesn't mean she wasn't telling the truth. It just means that preacher man.
Oh God, yeah, all right, okay. I'll look for the other priest that's going to turn up in this series. So
definitely that was them trying to lead you down a path.
Yeah, 100%. and they got me. They had me believing her at face value, which is obviously like Agnes is probably. I'm trying to think if there's many others. Maybe Hannah. Like Agnes is probably the most dishonest character I think we have in the show at the moment. I don't really trust anything that she says. Yeah.
I'd agree. It's very, very, very strange goings on. Okay, so after this, as you alluded to, we were talking about Claudia was talking about how her mom treats her. Then we flash to Claudia in the 80s being a mother. First thing is we see her if she has the time machine. It sort of shows us that again. Also, she offers to do. This scene sort of mirrors the Jonas and Hannah scene from was it series 1? Yeah, series 1. Whenever Hannah says, "Do you want to like skip school and come and do something with me?"
Yeah. No, there's a definite. I suppose that with the Jonas and Hannah scene, it's more Hannah's being slightly self-indulgent in that scene because she kind of wants some company, so she wants Jonas to come and keep her company. Whereas with this, she was
feeling sad about Ulrich, I think, at that time.
Yeah, she was. Whereas with this, Claudia obviously has the ticking clock of knowing that her time with Regina is very, very limited and running out, and she's trying to make up for lost time and build a relationship with her while she still can. And I think one of the really sort of palpably sad things about this episode is Claudia's arc over this episode. You can see her kind of wrapping up loose ends, not just old Claudia, but also middle Claudia, wrapping up these loose ends because she knows that she's not going to get another opportunity to do it. And it's just really sad to see how little she is able to sort of get out of these relationships because of the damage that she's done to them, through actions she's taken even before she knew about the time travel side of things, to be honest.
Yeah, I would fully agree with you. This episode definitely packs a lot of dramatic punch to it. And like the mirroring as well, as of like middle Claudia's sort of storyline in this episode to old Claudia as well, as you say, both sort of tying up these loose ends. I think this is also an episode which we'll get into, I'm sure, where Egon really comes into sort of most fans. I think after this episode would view Egon as one of their favorites. Definitely.
Yeah, there's a very, very definite sort of line of comparison between Egon and Claudia in this episode, where a lot of their actions are mirrored with each other, and it definitely leads to a couple of real sort of heart in the throat moments between those two.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, and unfortunately for Regina, she is going to be without a mother for a long time, it seems, at the minute.
Yeah, so I guess the implication is, I mean, we'll get into it later, but by the end of this episode, Regina may never see her mother again. That seems like the case.
That seems like the case, yeah. Okay, so after that, we get the scene where Egon is listening to Creator.
Oh my god! Like, I just want to grab Egon in this scene and be like, "You've had this line three times now, Egon. Come on."
Yeah, exactly. Well, one of them was in the 50s.
Yeah, that's true, but like, it's like staring you in the face, man. Come on.
Yeah, it is.
God bless him.
Yeah, he's great. But there's another mistake in this scene, by the way.
What's that?
I would never have noticed this myself. I just happened to. I've read someone somewhere. Can't even remember. Somewhere on the internet, I read this a long time ago. That the particular copy or version of this album was only released in 2017.
Oh, is it like a special edition LP or something?
Yeah, like it's like like the opening, what do you call it? Like whether you're able to open it up and it folds open. I can't remember what the actual name of that type of record cover is.
Yeah, I can't remember. I know the one you're talking about though.
Yeah, but that was the new version.
Unbelievable.
I know.
Send Baron Brodor all the letters that you possibly can. You've got to get this corrected.
That's at least three. I mean, those sort of proppy mistakes aren't real mistakes, but still, they count.
Yeah, no, definitely. We have to let these idiots know.
Yeah, we're on to them.
Yeah.
Right, okay. Next. Helga is not speaking to Egon when Egon goes around to visit. Doesn't want to say a word. So Egon goes in and tries to speak to him. And Greta gets very aggravated here. And sort of, it's almost as if she sort of feels like the devil's in him or something.
Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, there is that implication later on that he might be possessed, which... Yeah. Make that two characters who have made explicit references to possession and Satanism in this series. So I feel like Egon and Greta would get on like a house on fire if older Egon could come back and see her now.
Yeah, definitely. Because
this Egon
at this stage has only started getting the seed of Satanism put in him.
He's just started thinking about Satanism as a problem. Whereas if old Egon could come back to the 50s, these two would have a lovely chat about it.
Yeah. They'd be like a little Satanism, anti-Satanism club.
Yeah.
And Antisa. Finally
someone's doing it.
Yeah. Okay, so from there we get Claudia goes to visit Helga because she finds the book that Helga gave her, strange present out of nowhere, and Helga sort of explains here that he thought that she was the only person who would understand,
Yeah.
And then at the end of the scene, he sort of starts erupting and saying, "No, never trust him, never trust him."
Yeah, so, I mean, there's a bunch of interesting stuff in this scene. So I think the first thing that struck me, which actually really wasn't anything to do with this scene, was that on reflection, I wonder if the White Devil might be Claudia. Because I think when we talked about it last week, my initial feeling was like, oh, that must be Noah. Because of the devil bit, basically. I don't know why you'd call Claudia the White Devil, really.
Yeah. But
the white hair, it seems more fitting of her than it does of Noah. And that would also potentially explain why he thought giving the book to middle Claudia might help, because he knows what she turns into, because presumably he's had some interaction with old Claudia, or at least is aware of her, given Noah is also aware of her. There's a great line in this scene that probably needs some unpacking, which I haven't fully done.
Does that mean
yet.
You have two ongoing theories now about who the White Devil is? Yeah, I'd imagine so.
Yeah, I get.
If one of them is the White Devil, you're doomed to just even out on the points, though.
Yeah,
you
so
have to commit to one. I'd say.
I want to try not having. There's another one which we'll get into a bit later to do with someone's parentage, that is overlapping on a previous one, and I do want to try and not have, I don't want to put down every single person in Wyndon as every other person's parent, because also it kind of cheats. But that is definitely one of them.
So that means that you'll, like, by the end of this episode, we'll have a chat about that then, and you can decide which theory you want to take forward in the Matrix, basically.
Yeah, okay, we'll do that for both of them then.
You can start, like, retiring your own theories.
Yeah, well, yeah.
And, like, grey them out.
That's a good idea, yeah. But there's a lovely line in this scene where Helga says, "Time is always with you wherever you go," which is it's just a really lovely line that kind of, there's a lot in that in terms of what it says about how we carry our history with us, but then also this idea that these people aren't fixed points in time, but they're sort of bringing both their pasts and futures with them when they're traveling through time. It's a really, really brilliant bit of writing, that. And also, you might be able to explain this to me, but so Noah has previously told Helga that they are working to avoid the apocalypse. And in fact, no, I think Helga says that in this scene, that Noah said they were trying to avoid the apocalypse, and the time travelers are the ones who are trying to cause it. Yet we know that Adam has told Noah that they must ensure that it actually occurs. So I don't know whether this is just a case of Helga not being in on it, or whether I've misunderstood something.
I would understand that to mean at this point that Helga maybe isn't in on it.
Okay.
There's maybe that, because I don't think, knowing Helga, the character so far, I don't think he would participate in trying to end the world.
No, I don't think, it feels like everything, he was just about on board with trying to send kids back through time and accidentally killing them, which is my read on his participation rather. But yeah, ending the world, I feel like that'd be a hard sell for him.
Yeah, it took him 3 kids to realize, 3 dead kids to realize I shouldn't be doing this.
Yeah.
Whereas I'm pretty sure all the kids in the world, the first time he would be like, nope.
Yeah, I don't think so.
There's also I don't want to make theories for you, but I was also thinking at this stage in the show as well, maybe I picked up on that myself, the idea that there's been talk about one side trying to stop an apocalypse, one side trying to start an apocalypse, and there was kind of a bit of back and forth on who was actually doing what, right?
Yeah.
So I at this point was thinking to myself, right, well, does Noah want to cause the apocalypse, but by causing the apocalypse is actually starting something afresh? That's what I kind of thought.
Yeah.
So it's like he does want to end the world, but actually the world won't be ended because it will start something. You know what I mean? That's what I thought.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of what I'm still wrestling with at the moment, which will become more apparent as this episode goes on, with this sort of looming spectre of older Claudia knowing everything that's going on, and yet ending up in not great situations, and what that means. Yeah, I won't say anything now, but I feel like the baton has been passed to some very unlikely characters in this episode, which I'm really, really interested to see more of.
Okay, awesome. Can't wait to hear about that. So, talking of older Claudia, in the next scene, we see that Agnes is sort of working with her in a way.
Yeah, it's very inconspicuous, Agnes, just walking through the woods in a bright yellow dress.
Yeah. So she doesn't do things subtly.
No.
Which is strange for one of the biggest liars in the show, but still. So she comes down into the bunker. Claudia's talking about that her brother is a blind fool. I'm sure at this point you were pumping your fist going, I think I've got it.
Yeah.
So she gives Agnes a newspaper.
Yes.
And then Agnes says, today.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It's I didn't actually figure out what they were talking about in regards to the newspaper the first time I watched this. So the ending caught me by complete surprise, really. But because the thing I really focused on in this scene was how Claudia knows about Noah and Helga being back. Helga, she presumably could have heard maybe that the Doppler boy has come back from a conversation she maybe overheard. But we literally, before this scene, we see Noah get back to the 50s. We see him walk out of the church, which prompted another question in my mind, which is that, does the church have a time machine in it? Because he walks out of that in 1952 and Claudia immediately knows that he's back, which makes me think there's something going on there.
Well, this is Claudia at the end of her life, so we don't know whether she knows literally everything that's happening everywhere, or you know what I mean. So we don't know how much she is in the know at this point, anyway. So maybe she just knows the movements of everyone at this stage. Who knows? Well,
yeah, but what would she know it from? Is more the thing. Like, is it all written down in the pages that she's stolen, or is it something else?
Yeah.
But as you say,
maybe she was in the bushes watching him do it.
yeah, and then she sprinted to the bunker. But finding out Noah is Agnes's brother makes it takes us in a really interesting direction. And there's a very interesting line from Agnes as well, where she says, "Renouncing your blood means freeing yourself. You said so yourself," which begs the question: what blood has Claudia renounced?
Yes, yeah, interesting. It's great stuff. Also, there's a little line at the end of the scene where Claudia says, she says, "My mother loves you.
Yeah,
she'll make you very happy if you let her."
Yeah, it's which to me seems to confirm that Agnes is seducing Doris under instruction, and it seems like it's probably Claudia's instruction, which is heartbreaking in its own way. Actually, that she's sort of forcing her mother to leave her father through something that's completely orchestrated and not real.
Yeah, so what's your thoughts on as to why Agnes is sort of having to do this, if she is?
Well, I mean, I know this is... I don't want to sound like a broken record, and I know this is kind of a lazy answer, but Claudia keeps on saying that everything needs to happen the way it has happened because she's getting things in place for the apocalypse to be avoided, or well, for things to be fixed, I guess, is the sort of more broad and like kind of imprecise way that she's saying it. So I guess this is just part of that she knows that her mother needs to leave her father, and therefore Agnes is kind of playing that part in seducing her away from him.
Interesting. Yeah. Probably. Yeah. I was probably falling the same spot as you. Like she's sort of hinting or pushing for her parents' marriage to split up, which some scenes later on this episode make that extra sad because, you know, there did seem to be a nice relationship between her and her dad at one point.
Yeah, no, absolutely. This entire family is being torn apart by this, and it is Claudia that is doing it, and I don't believe she's doing it maliciously. I mean, I would assume if we're looking at what will happen as a result of this, we know that Doris leaves Egon eventually, and it wouldn't surprise me if that split in the marriage is what causes Egon to leave this house, which then lets it become the Nielsen house, which presumably is how then Ulrich and Mads and Mikkel will come to be involved in time travel as well. So I would assume that's Claudia's end game here. But it is heartbreaking for her to have to just pull apart her family in order to fulfill a future that is kind of, well, it's not good for anyone involved. I don't know what happens to Doris, but I can't imagine it's that good, given we know Agnes is doing this under direction.
Yeah. We'll paint the sorry picture. So next is this very much is the episode I feel where like the character of Claudia is very much like, okay, I'm in the game now.
Yeah. In the next scene when she talks to H.G. Tannhaus, I wrote as a note, Claudia is starting to believe, open brackets, insert Matrix meme, close brackets, because that's what this feels like in this episode, is that
he's starting to believe.
Middle Claudia is on board now.
Yeah, definitely. So H.G. Tannhaus has a few different scenes with him and Claudia, sort of also mirroring him and the stranger in episode 8 of season 1.
Yeah, that's right.
So sort of throughout the episode, and he's talking about all sorts of things, like talking about bootstrap paradoxes.
Yep.
Talking about Claudia's future self coming and telling him that she would visit when she was younger, sort of thing.
Yeah. The bootstrap paradox in in particular. It's a lovely visual that Tannhaus creates, but it's really nicely illustrated with the book, the name of which I've forgotten again, but
The Journey Through Time.
Yeah, through the Journey Through Time book, but also with Claudia's own actions. So later in this episode, someone who looks suspiciously like an older version of his daughter will turn up and speak to a young Egon, and you have during the prison part of this, which we'll get into as well. Tannhaus doing the voiceover saying, we see these kind of paradoxical examples of bootstrap theory, bootstrap paradox in our day-to-day lives, but we ignore it because it doesn't make sense. And then you see these really clever little examples of it dotted throughout this episode, and in fact throughout the whole series.
Yeah, awesome. Because those are just going to keep multiplying, because when you have this many people going through time and stuff, it's just going to
can't bloody keep track of them all.
Yeah, exactly. So then Egon goes and sees old Ulrich in the sort of asylum or psych ward or whatever this is.
Yeah.
There was a very short scene of him in the 50s, actually, and it cuts to this. I don't really know if there's any... I'm sure there's significance there, but what did you think of this scene where he's showing Ulrich the record? And I think Ulrich's talking about how he can't believe how out of touch he is or whatever.
Yeah, I think the one before this, in the police station in the 50s, I didn't really get a good sense of what the purpose of that scene was, because it just seemed like it was just Daniel and Egon saying, oh, maybe there was an accomplice to the guy, to Ulrich.
Yeah.
Which,
Actually, now you've reminded me. I think it was them trying in a way to It was like, because there was a chance, like if there's a new person, if this people are still going missing, then maybe that Ulrich, or who they don't know his name, but Ulrich didn't do it.
Yeah.
And then they very quickly convince each other, oh no, he must have had an accomplice. So they sort of doubled down in their mind that no, the Ulrich or unnamed person who's in jail must be the killer still, even though Helga is very clearly just come back from somewhere, so clearly there's something else going on.
Yeah.
They doubled down on the fact that no, he is still guilty.
Yeah, I just felt a bit odd, to be honest, because I'd assumed that they thought all of this without having this scene. But maybe it's just a lead.
But it also gave a reason for him to go and visit him too.
Yeah, that's true. Maybe it's just a lead into the Egon and Ulrich stuff. But yeah, it's nice that Egon finally gets, like in the 87 scene, it's nice that Egon finally gets a name. But he still feels like he's kind of focusing on the wrong thing here, and it's interesting that Ulrich and Egon are kind of fixated on one another, or Egon more on Ulrich than vice versa, when, to be honest, I don't think either of them really are going to get very far with this, because we know Egon hasn't got long to live.
Yeah, true. I also like the idea of these two characters based on where they started in like sort of the 80s, with old Egon, really having an out for young Ulrich.
Yeah.
And I like where they are now, these two characters sort of sitting there as old men together. It's really quite poetic.
Yeah, I wonder if that is where this arc is going to lead, with just them kind of facing the ends of their lives together, neither having really achieved very much, but kind of wanting to, like, finding some degree of solace and respect in the other's company. I hope Egon gets a certain degree of that, because he's easily the most disrespected character in the entire show at the moment.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, so then we do get the scene where Egon goes to see. So this is sort of, they went from a scene where Ulrich and Egon were sort of together as old men, and then they're going back 33 years before, when Egon is going to visit Ulrich, the same two characters, and he's going to visit him in the prison.
Yeah, and it's a lovely mirror, the two of them in their 70s or late 60s, and then the two of them in probably their early 40s or maybe close to 50s. The one thing that really struck me in this scene was some really nice work done by the actor who plays Ulrich. The sort of vague look of disappointment on his face when it's sort of confirmed that Helga is alive is really well done.
Yeah, and he goes to say his name, but he doesn't say anything, and then once he leaves, he sort of whispers, "I am Ulrich Nielsen." Yeah,
like he's just too sedated to say it, and it's. I know some people get annoyed with things like that because they're a bit kind of they're a bit kind of filmy to be like, oh, it was convenient that no one heard him say that, but it worked for me. It's just particularly on a show about time, these sort of thin margins along which massive developments can either happen or not happen depending on whether you hear something or not, are quite satisfying. And yeah, this one definitely works for me.
Yeah, and these sort of like, wink wink nudge nudge at the camera moments don't happen very often.
No, absolutely not.
So when they do happen, it does give you a certain amount of satisfaction to it as well. Okay, so from there then we get Ulrich sort of really researching the case again.
Yeah.
And he's finding links between Mikkel's case and Ulrich's case.
Yeah.
So from Ulrich's case from the 50s, and Mikkel being the new child who arrived in Winden in like 7-8 months ago. So he's starting to see the links. So it's all there for him, isn't it?
It is. Like, it's all in front of him. It's maddening because people have put together more with so much less, and because he's so rubbish as a cop, he can't do it.
Yeah, like think of what Ulrich used to put it all together in season 1. It was much less than what Egan's been given.
He's got the whole puzzle in front of him. The only thing he doesn't have is Noah, I think. Oh no, in fact, Helga, I think maybe name drops Noah to him a couple of episodes ago in the psychiatric hospital. So I think he literally has everything.
Yeah, but he might actually. Yeah, crazy. Anyway, so he's sort of going through. He's realized. And then Noah pays a visit to Greta and young Helga, and he gets him to read a verse from the Bible. Yeah,
so I have some thoughts about this. Okay. Greta, the way she sort of very, very rigidly recants Bible verse or sort of talks in terms of the Bible, and the way she looks at him being Noah, almost unblinkingly, makes me think that she is infatuated with him and sort of fanatically devoted to I think broadly to religion, but more specifically to Noah. And I'll say this now because it's one of the theories I came out this episode with, but I've got a few. I suspect that she has slept with him, given how she looks at him, and we know that Helga isn't Bern's child. So I wonder if Helga is literally Noah's son, based on this scene.
Interesting.
Okay. And the sort of, after he gets Helga to say like a Bible verse, the "Won't you stay a while" from Greta, felt like there was more to that than just saying, "Oh, hang around
make
for
another
a bit."
one.
Yeah. And Noah telling her to be a mother.
Let's make another one and not screw it up this time.
Yeah, exactly. Make one that's less weird, please. And Noah being like, "No, just be a good mother to this one, please. I'm off to do some murders." But yeah, this was a great scene. I'm really interested to see what Noah's relationship with Greta. We'll see what more we get from this relationship.
Okay, cool. I love that little theory. Wasn't expecting a theory there, but we got one.
Yep.
So I think I can just imagine like certain characters. You're gonna like be predicting that they have like 8 kids.
I'm not joking. Like there was this episode, I was going through being like, I think this person's this kid as well. And by the end of it, I was like, they can't have had 4 kids in one go. And like so there's it's
time traveling priest gigolo.
Just like a woman in every port, but instead of ports it's every time he just like pops up in the 20s to impregnate someone and then's like, bye, I'm off to the 50s now.
I gotta keep the time.
But yeah, no, there was a lot of the theories that I got out of this one were to do with who people's parents and children were.
Oh, that's good. Okay, can't wait to hear them. So next we have Egon pays a visit to Enos.
Yeah.
And he asks Enos if Michael, we'll call him Michael now, that's his name at this point.
Yeah.
So Egon asks Enos if Michael mentioned anything about the White Devil.
Yeah. So it gets mentioned again.
Mm-hmm. It's definitely been built upon.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm really not sure about this one. Like my theory is that it's Claudia, just almost purely because of the hair. But I wonder who else it could be. I suppose older Helga had white hair as well, but I don't really see that necessarily being something that he would fixate on. Although I suppose they did have that conversation shortly before.
So you think Helga is referring to himself as the White Devil?
I mean, he could be, but I've really not got anything more than educated guesses about who the White Devil might be at the moment. But I still think it's probably Claudia, but it could also be his older self, just because of hair color, really.
Yeah.
But oh, sorry, go on.
No, I was literally just going to say, it's a Device Teufel. That's all I was going to say. Like every single time I think of the White Devil, I just think of that.
Like apropos of nothing, that like this scene has me questioning my opinion of Enos. I think.
Yes. Why? I was going to mention this next.
Yeah. So we spoke about this briefly in the last episode, and it was something that I mentioned all the way back in episode 5, I think, of season 1, where I was sort of saying I was interested to see how Enos negotiated Michael's desire to get back to his correct time. And I feel like we have the first hint of it here, which is that she's not negotiating it. She's denying it even exists and potentially drugging him. So that doesn't seem great, to be honest. Yeah. And lying to police about this. I couldn't actually honestly remember if Mikkel has mentioned his parents' names to Enos yet, but I feel like he must have, even off camera at this point.
Yeah.
She
just shoved a load more sleeping pills in.
Yeah, and she was just like, no, he didn't mention them. So she lies to the police and then drugs him up, which it's hard to get a read on exactly what's going on here, but it's not a great first look.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, interesting enough. It is complete. It's the complete opposite of what you were thinking was going to happen, because their relationship seems so warm and nice in the first series.
Yeah, I thought she'd be like, okay, I don't want to lose you, but I understand why you might want to go. And then this is like, nope, you're staying with me.
Yeah, I think once he was in her house, he was like, hang on a minute, I need to get out of here. Like, I'm not in the hospital anymore. I need to actually get home.
Yeah.
And she was like, you're not going anywhere.
Yeah, you're a gift from God. Thank you very much.
Yeah, well, that's what it means.
Yeah, exactly. So does Mads. Look forward to him coming back in a few episodes' time. And Yasin.
Yasin's still about.
Yeah, Yasin's fine. Yeah, he's still hanging out. The photo of Mikkel made me think of Ulrich's prison photo in this as well. I feel like you don't give photos to other people lightly in Dark, so I feel like that's going to come back. I wonder if Clausen is going to see that in something, actually.
Did it not already come back in this very episode?
Well, it comes back in this episode because I suppose Ulrich has it actually in his possession in the 80s, doesn't he? So it's not in a file. I was expecting it to be kind of like tucked away in a police file, and then Clausen to find it in 2019 and be like, oh, this is the same boy who went missing a year ago.
Yeah. Well, that could still happen.
Yeah, it could
definitely. Okay, so next we get the confirmation scene that Noah and Agnes are siblings in the church. Yep. Agnes sporting the yellow dress, as you say. I just love, I don't know, the two of them, like Noah in the all black with the priest, and her outfit here. This is a very visually pleasing scene, even just for the costume.
Yeah, I mean, the yellow, I feel like the color coding is very clear because it's a color that speaks to sort of cowardice and betrayal. And not to say Agnes is cowardly. I have my thoughts about her actions in this episode, but I think that's what it's hinting at, is this kind of yellow bellied. But this is a great scene, and there's a rawness to Noah's performance here which kind of confirms that this is the truth. The way he speaks, he feels like what she has done in breaking away from Adam's group has hurt him on a deep sort of personal level. And it just hints at so much more as well. This like idea that Claudia has manipulated both of them means they must have quite significant history with Claudia, and Agnes was a part of Adam's cult at one point and now isn't. And there's just so much to be read from this.
Yeah, definitely. And also you get the little sort of bit of plot progression in a way as well, where Agnes reveals that Claudia has the last pages, which we know that Noah has been searching for, and also she gives the newspaper that Claudia gave her to Noah.
Yes, yep. I still hadn't put two and two together in regards to the newspaper at this point, if I'm honest. I was fixated on other stuff.
I don't think,
But it's it's such a good scene. This I'm Agnes continues to be a character that I'm really struggling to get a read on, but she's fascinating to watch.
Yeah, and she says that she wants to come back before the start of the last cycle. What do you think that means?
Yeah, I'm not 100% sure of that. So I mean, we've talked about cycles like before in this, and they said the beginning of the last cycle was the stretch in 2020 where the lead up to the apocalypse, basically. So I'm not, to me that doesn't make sense in regards to that. So I feel like there must be something else that she's referring to in terms of a cycle here. Whether it's, I don't know, actually, because they're in the 50s, so it could be the 80s. I'm not sure, to be honest. It confused me more than it confirmed anything. But it feels like to me that their group operates very strictly within these sort of set periods where people are time traveling, and those are what they refer to as cycles. So I guess that's what she's talking about. But it's still very much open for interpretation at the moment to me.
Yeah. Okay, definitely. Okay, so moving on then, we get, in my opinion, if you were to take 3 scenes from all of Dark, 3 scenes that happen concurrently, the next 3 scenes are my favorite 3 of the whole show. I love what the writers and the director did in these scenes, and I'm talking about the 3 Claudia Egon scenes.
Yeah, they're fantastic.
Yeah, so there's like 3 in a row. First of all, you get old Claudia and middle-aged Egon.
Yeah.
Then you get middle-aged Claudia and old Egon, and then you get young Claudia and middle-aged Egon.
Yeah.
And the story that's told in these 3 scenes alone is just absolutely breathtaking.
Yeah, I mean it's like almost, people use these terms quite flippantly, I think, but this is like a movie in 3 scenes. It's so touching isn't the word. It's just heartbreaking, and it's especially once you know what happens to Claudia at the end of this episode, it adds another layer to it. It's already very, very touching and heartbreaking seeing her try to reform these relationships or fix these relationships, and Egon do the exact same thing. But then when you get the added sort of drama of knowing that these are 2 old people who are knowingly at the end of their life, and they're desperately trying to just get some kind of closure and peace when it comes to the relationships with the people closest to them, and knowing that neither of them are really going to do it. And yeah, the like older Cloud so in the first scene, it's such a lovely scene, and I think it's made in this case by the actress who plays older Claudia, because there's such palpable sadness in her performance. And her just apologizing to this man who doesn't know who she is and doesn't know what she's saying, but it's all she can do because she's stuck in the 50s. So this is going to have to do as a sort of way of her trying to salvage that relationship. And then I mean I don't want to talk on this for too long without letting you go, but it's so good. And the middle scene in this definitely had me with a lump in my throat.
Yeah, just like the abrupt "I have cancer." He's sick of being dismissed by her.
Yeah.
I have cancer. There's a particular line that repeats in the first of these scenes and the last of these scenes, and in my opinion, if this show was a chronological passage of the character arc of Claudia, that when older Claudia says you're much too good a person, the world doesn't deserve you.
Yeah.
When she says it the first time, obviously we as audience members are hearing that for the first time, her saying that to her father while she's an old woman. He doesn't really know what's going on. So it doesn't actually bear that much weight. But then whenever we get it when she's a young girl and we realize that she said it because her as a young child said it on the same day, "You're much too good a person, Papa, the world doesn't deserve you." Can you imagine now on a rewatch how... knowing once you've watched the whole thing, this is what how I watch it this time. I've seen the whole show. I know exactly Claudia's arc. I know where she goes and everything like that. And so I really felt when I knew what was coming, and when she said that, I knew why she was apologizing and everything. And it really, to be honest with you, I was really sort of on the verge of tearing up, because it had so much weight on the second viewing that you're too much too good a person, because I knew that's what what she said when she was a child, you know?
Yeah, and I think even just without the knowledge of what's to come for Egon, although I kind of, I have an idea in my head that it's probably not going to be that great for him as a character. But yeah, I was one.
Why stop now?
Yeah, but I was exactly the same. It's that's why she's saying it, and there's a commitment or a conviction to those words as well. She believes them absolutely. She's not. I think that's the thing that got me about this set of scenes, was that the fact she says it when she's 10 or 12 or however old she's supposed to be, when in the 50s. Means that she's not just saying this because she feels, older Claudia is not just saying this because she feels guilty. It's something that she felt when she was 12 and she still feels when she's 70. And there's just throughout this set of 3 scenes, there is an undeniable love and affection between these two characters, and it's so heartbreaking that they've just never managed. Well, actually no, I'm not going to say never, because young Claudia with her father in the final scene, there is a kind of resolution there where you do see that there was a time when they were close to one another and could, share these kind of feelings. But it's heartbreaking that in the first 2 scenes, it's clear that they lose it, and it's so sad. And yeah, like when in the middle scene, the bit that really got me in this was after he's told Claudia that he has cancer, and her just running up to him and hugging him, which is kind of all she has left to her at this point. She doesn't have time to fix these relationships with words or relationships. So it's just a daughter hugging her dad, knowing that they're probably never going to see each other again, which is, never going to see each other again in this, I guess, correct chronological sense. And it's fantastic. These 3 scenes really floored me in how good they were.
Yeah, to be honest with you, ever since I started my YouTube channel, I have had a video essay on these three scenes in my mind, and I'm still formulating how I would go about that, because they do deserve, a really, really good one. But it's something that I've had views on, and I've wanted to talk about from the start. So at least we got to talk about it here. But definitely, when I think of like second season of Dark, these 3 scenes pop into my head immediately.
Yeah, no, I can totally see why.
Yeah. Awesome. Okay, so moving on, we get more sort of development in the Ulrich Egon story. So Egon now goes round to Ulrich. He's got a massive puzzle in front of him. Yeah. For an unhinged man, he can do puzzles pretty well.
Yeah, and play chess by himself as well.
Oh yeah, well, that's just a given. He is the inspector after all. So basically, Egon gives him the Mikkel photo, and Ulrich goes bonkers.
Yeah, it's like he's not doing himself any favors here. Like Ulrich is still, even 33 years on, just violent by nature.
Yeah, like, to be honest with you, like, I know people are going to be telling me, come on, he hasn't seen his son for 33 years, he's been locked up. Cool. Okay, yeah, I agree with you. There's a huge amount of pent-up aggression.
Yeah.
Of course there is. At the same time, sometimes you watch films on TV and you just think to yourself, why are you acting this way?
Yeah, like, why do you go straight for the throat? Like, I mean, if he just stood up and shouted, I'd be like, you know what, it's fair enough. That's an understandable response. It's a lot of frustration.
In my mind, I'm also like, why are you assuming that Egon knew the whole time?
Exactly.
If he knew the whole time, why would he show
Look
you
at
this
Egon's
now?
face. He doesn't know what day it is. Never mind, like, who Mikkel is. Like, he's struggling. He's still on creator albums. Like, he's so far behind everyone else in this game.
But maybe Ulrich in his mind is thinking, like, that's why you treated me so poorly whenever I was a teenager and stuff, because you knew that my son had come. Maybe he had all this going on. Like,
yeah, I mean, Ulrich is nothing if not a self-obsessed character, and very self-pitying. So I could totally, and I say that, understanding that there are some things that he deserves to feel sad about and deserves to.
Yeah, like there's no denying that where he is at this moment of the story is very sad, and he's almost turned into a bit of a tragic character at this stage. Yeah. There's no denying that.
But he doesn't do himself any favors.
No, definitely not. Okay, so then we get the scene we heard about earlier in the episode where old Claudia, I love how we have to specify all this now.
My notes.
We're so deep in the show. We have all these different versions.
Every one of my I basically, when I take notes, I go on a scene by scene basis, and every one of them is like Tannhaus 53, Egon and Ulrich 87. Like, it's for God's sake, there's got to be an easier way.
Yeah.
I suspect it's going to get harder before it gets easier.
Yeah. Okay, so this scene is the one where she goes to see H.G. Tannhaus in the 50s.
The bootstrap continues.
Yeah, so she gives the book. So now we see that this is going to happen. So yeah, I think this is probably just confirmation of like this is the payoff of that bootstrap paradox conversation rather than anything else.
Yeah, and you know, also Claudia once again talking in quite cryptic terms about the end that she perceives, which I still have no idea how this is getting fixed, to be honest. Like, I don't understand Claudia's plan, but I trust Claudia implicitly by the end of this episode.
Yeah, she has that air about her, like for a real disheveled old woman who seems to have just been living in a pit. Like she does give an air of, you know, I know what I'm doing.
Yeah, no, I definitely like if this was the Terminator 2 situation, but instead of Arnold Schwarzenegger walking out of the lift and saying "Come with me if you want to live," it was her. I'd still be like, yeah, okay, she knows what's up.
Yeah. You know, she's sort of half Arnold Schwarzenegger in the Terminator, half the Bird Woman from Home Alone 2.
Yeah, it's definitely. Yeah, there's definitely a lot of that in there. That's great.
Right. Okay. So here comes the montage. So
this montage should be called "Everyone's in their PJs."
Everyone's in their PJs having a midnight tipple.
Yeah, it's a lot of people. Well, yeah, like Agnes and Doris wish they were in their PJs, so or out of them, as the case may be. And Egon's just watching on desperately. Poor Egon.
Did you get the flowers, Mom?
Oh, bless him.
Yeah. So I think also we mentioned also earlier the praying scene. This very much just again was a very short. It was only about a minute long, I think, maybe even 45 seconds. This one, but it was very much just like, all right, let's just check in. What have we learnt so far before we ramp it up at the end?
It was a shame actually, but well, not a shame. But, I mean, it was a fine montage, nothing wrong with it. But it had a really lovely song choice, which stood out to me. But I felt like this was really leading into the next scene.
Yeah, so the next scene, which we'll talk about in a minute, before we do, I just wanted to say about this, usually the montage is like, happens in the montage, then there's like maybe a scene or sometimes two scenes after the montage, and then the episode's over, right? In this episode, there was like 4 scenes after the montage, and which is fine, that's absolutely fine, but I kind of just like, as I was rewatching it, I forgot that there was so much after the montage.
Yeah.
So I kind of had the same feeling as I did when I was finishing watching Lord of the Rings: Return of the King.
Yeah. It's like, I hope you like endings, because there's going to be about 15 of them.
Yeah, exactly. But anyway, so I thought I'd mention that. But so we get Claudia and Noah in the woods.
Yep.
And she ends up dead. I don't want to unpack too much out of this. We're sort of getting into the stage in the show where I could help you read in too much to things, where I read in too much to things, but maybe I shouldn't have and stuff. So
I will say this. My first thought in this scene was that I get a very Vader killing Obi-Wan vibe from this scene. Like, this is the maybe this is wishful thinking, but the way Noah is at the end of this episode, the cracks are starting to show, and I feel like him killing Claudia is really the beginning of it, where he's questioning his commitment to Adam, he's questioning what he has done in the past, what he's going to do. You know, there's that flash of indecision in his face where Claudia says, "Oh, you know, if you actually had free will, you'd be able to make a choice here," which is, in my head, was very much a, "If you strike me down, I shall become more possible than you could possibly, or more powerful than you can possibly imagine," kind of line. I don't think that we're going to get a Claudia Force Ghost. I feel like, although I would bloody love it if we did.
Yeah, just like with Yoda sitting next to her.
And Hayden Christensen.
Or Gretchen. No, Gretchen the
Gretchen. Oh yeah, that'd be great. Gretchen and Yasin on either side of her.
Yeah, we also can't move past this part. We're talking about that part in Star Wars without mentioning that in the first Star Wars, or either Episode 4, Obi-Wan refers to Darth Vader as Darth. As if that's his first name.
Yeah. It's like calling someone Mister. It's like,
You
it's
can't win, Darth.
He doesn't know. Like he was just doing it for a paycheck. He doesn't pay attention to the script. But yeah, so that was the sense I got from this, is that Claudia is doing it like basically by the end of this episode. It really caught me off guard, this, because it didn't really change my impression of Claudia. Weirdly, I still had in my head, Claudia knows what's going on. Claudia will fix everything. Trust Claudia. But in my head, I figured it was going to be old Claudia who would be fixing everything, because she's the one who has the knowledge and the experience. She's gone through this whole process, and kind of similar to the stranger, she's at the point now where she knows how to do everything. So for her to die presumably means that middle Claudia is going to be the one to sort everything out. Maybe even young Claudia, I don't know. But
I will also just say they're all the same Claudia.
Well, yeah, but I mean, they're the same Claudia in the sense it brings me back to mind of that conversation that Hannah and Stranger Jonas have, where he says, "Imagine each of these different versions of me as a different person, even though they are still the same person. They kind of exist independently," and this really hammered that home for me. So I still, trust Claudia, #trust Claudia, but like she the fact that it's now going to be the middle or young Claudia who's going to fix everything is really interesting to me. And what this did to Noah is the thing that really, really stands out to me as well. I can't wait to see where his character goes from here.
Yeah, and out of curiosity, actually, one thing I wanted to ask is, when you say that, like the middle Claudia is the one going to have to do it, do you view this Claudia as setting the table for the next Claudia to sort of break off and do her own thing, or do you view this Claudia as having already done what you're thinking that middle Claudia is going to do?
No, so yeah, I don't think old Claudia, when she was middle Claudia, did the things that current middle Claudia is going to do. Okay, so in my head, old Claudia has done everything up until this point as it was done before, but she has put the pieces in place for current middle Claudia to do something different.
Okay, interesting. Great. There's also so Noah gets the pages. He sees that we're revealed in Agnes's hand. I think is she burning it, the newspaper? I can't quite remember. Anyway, we see it anyway. And we see that it was about an unidentified woman's body in the woods, and it was a picture of sort of Claudia. And it's almost as if like Claudia knew she was going to die, and she walked into it.
Which is why so she actually, Agnes is just keeping the paper here, so she still has it. And when older Claudia gave it to her, she told her to give it to her younger self. And the fact that Agnes still has it, there's no reason for her to still have it if all she wanted to do with it was give it to Noah so that she could betray Claudia. So to my mind, Agnes hasn't actually switched sides here, and she's her giving it to Noah first was part of the plan. So yeah, I still think that middle Claudia is, or maybe even young Claudia is getting a hold of this paper.
Interesting. There's also Noah who finds the missing pages.
I hate this scene. I hate it. I hate it so much. It's just like this, the way he responds to it, just throwing out little things that are completely unexplained and make me want to watch the next episode. He just like starts crying and then says, "Charlotte, that can't be it." And I was like, "What about Charlotte? Tell me the truth." It's maddening. Yeah, maddening.
Yeah, it's great. Yeah, okay, so I'm sure we'll get into more of that in the roundup. But there's 2 more scenes left, and we'll sort of go through them quickly because I'm wary of the time at this point. So Claudia travels through time for the first time, and she sees Regina, her daughter, with cancer on the balcony. Yeah. So I like the way the first thing she did was to go see her daughter. What did you think?
Yeah, it was really touching. Her reaction when seeing her daughter, and also very interesting that Adam is the one doing the voiceover during this, which obviously then leads into the next scene. The "we are connected through our blood" definitely ties into my "everyone's a goddamn Nielsen" theory, which we'll get into more in a little bit.
Adam referred to what in that way?
So he's just saying, I can't remember the exact lines, but one of the lines he says is, "We are connected through our blood."
And it shows the picture of the four families.
Yeah, that's right. So it cuts to the next scene where it shows a picture of the four families, and then ends with him saying, "Everyone gets what's coming to them," which is, I wonder.
That's a very mob bossy thing to say. Isn't it?
I wonder who might be the next one to get what's coming to them. Noah lying to Adam about the pages. That seems like a big moment for Noah's character development. All I'm saying is, Noah babyface turn. I called it.
Yeah. And I think at the end of season 1, there was I think you also at the end of season 1 were sort of alluding to that back then, even wasn't it? Was that early? Because I think you were saying that he was just so bad that he couldn't keep up being that just a big bad with no redeeming features forever.
I think my opinion at the end of season 1 was that he's really evil, so I struggle to see how they're going to redeem him, but I think they could move him into a sort of grey area in the middle ground where he starts to rail against a bigger bad guy, and that seems to be what's happening here, and I can't wait to see how they do it, because Noah is a great character. This is like The Rock in 1998 or 1999. It's a big face turn coming up here.
Yeah. You have him be so bad to the point where the crowd love him.
Yeah, exactly. The crowd turn him,
and they love him even more.
Yeah. But I can't wait to see where this goes, because Noah has the first crack in the Noah-Adam relationship is shown now.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, so that was the end of the episode. Let's get right into the roundup.
Yeah, let's do it.
All right, so IMDb rating 9.2.
I think that's about right. I think dramatically, this is such a strong episode, maybe the best one so far. It just the character work from Claudia and Egon really anchors the whole thing, and it is so good. And there's a fair few really interesting plot hooks as well with the Agnes and Noah stuff. I think that's deserved. Yeah,
so do I. Okay, so overall thoughts on this episode?
Yeah, I think it was really good. I think it was. It's hard to really judge it in the grand scheme of the episodes, because it's quite different to a lot of the ones that have come before it, just because it's so focused on I think most episodes are focused on a small group of characters, but this feels like it's focused on literally 2 characters. I guess you could say Agnes and Noah also get a fair bit of focus here too, but to me this is a Claudia and Egon special, this one. But it was a really good episode. Now I really can't speak highly enough about the whole episode, but those 3 scenes that we spent some time on in particular, they were so well delivered and so well written, well acted. Just everything about them was perfect.
Yeah, and they very deliberately as well stuck to those 2 timelines, the 80s and the 50s. There was only at the very, very end, whenever you're looking at Regina on the balcony, there was the 2020 stuff, and then there's clearly no post-apocalyptic 2050 stuff. Yeah,
so it was a very deliberate choice, and I think it worked really well because it's going back and forth between those 2 characters, sort of beginnings and endings.
Okay, cool. All right, so any theories coming out of this episode?
Okay, so there's a few. So the first one is really a theory that I kind of had retrospectively. But so going back to episode 1, the bit where the guy I believe to be older Bartos says that's why he called you Noah, to the young Noah when they're making the Sigmundus tunnel. And that combined with Agnes being revealed as Noah's sister, and the idea that they kind of came up through the ranks of Adam's cult as children, makes me think that they might actually literally be Adam's children. Which, for those who aren't paying attention, means, well, we'll get into this a bit later, but I previously hypothesized that Adam is an older version of Jonas, and that Jonas also has children with Ellie that turn.
Whoa, someone's speeding past your window there.
A motorbike going past my window. Sorry, everyone.
Yeah,
it's fine.
They must have been really cool.
Yeah, they're probably doing a wheelie while they were doing it. So Jonas had children with Ellie, who would turn into Charlotte, and the brown-haired girl. So Jonas is racking up the children. Like,
Yeah.
So that's one. I don't know if you want to say anything about that, or do you want me to go on to some other ones?
Remind me again what that was.
So I
the motorbike.
oh,
threw
I
me.
think yeah. So I think Noah and Agnes are literally Adam's children.
Oh yeah. Okay, yeah, Alan's children. Okay, but my one thing that I'll sort of quiz on that without saying anything more is, well, then how do you square away the idea that the guy who you presume is older Bartos said to young Noah, did you ever wonder why? Ask him why he took you in.
Oh, does he say why he took you in? Oh, I missed that. Okay, fair enough. I thought he just says. I went back and watched it, and I didn't spot that line, but so I just heard the why he called you Noah, which initially my first thought was like, oh, he did take him in, but then I started thinking about it more, and I was like, oh, maybe he literally gave birth, like he literally had him as a child, and that's what.
Well, we'll have to rewatch that, because in my mind, in that scene, he's always said that. I might just be making it up, but I've always had that in my mind that he said that. Now, I'm not saying anything about the parentage of Noah and Agnes there. I'm just saying that in terms of your theory at this stage, you might want to take something like that into account.
I'll go back. I'll put that as a tentative on the Theory Matrix, and I'll go back and watch that first episode again and see if he does talk about taking him in. Because if he does, then I'll recant this and we'll scrub it off.
Okay. Still interesting though. Interesting thoughts.
Yeah.
I think.
Well, and likewise to that, Noah's reaction to the pages, specifically the way that he says Charlotte, makes me wonder whether he might actually be Charlotte's father rather than Jonas. Just because that reaction seemed like the kind of reaction you'd have when you find out that someone is either your parent or your child. So previously I'd said I think Jonas will have a relationship with Ellie at some point in the future, and they will have children as a result of that. I wonder if it might be Noah instead. So I need to get that squared away and decide which one of those two I think is going to be the father of Charlotte. And
maybe it might even be something crazy like Noah is Charlotte's grandson or something.
Yeah, it could be that as well. They definitely just seem like they're related to each other based on that reaction. And I've already said this, but just to mention it again. So I think that Helga is Noah's child. Like, that definitely seems like that he and Greta might have had a relationship based on the way she's acting, and it would be quite poetic for the boy who has like become his adopted child to be his actual biological child as well. It's like he just rocks back up, and steals him away from Burnt. Yeah,
and Burnt actually hasn't been around very much.
Yeah, I don't know what Burnt's up to. Just building the nuclear plant, I guess.
Yeah, he's building it like brick by brick on his own.
Yeah, well, no one else wants to work there after he got into it with the coal miners. Oh, no, the coal plant operators.
Yeah, exactly. Okay,
I'm trying to
awesome.
think if I've got any others.
Anything else?
Well, just the two about... So Agnes hasn't actually betrayed Claudia. She was instructed to get her killed, and Claudia was the one who was telling Agnes to seduce her mother. So just little ones.
Okay, awesome. So, well, they'll go in the Theory Matrix anyway. Okay, we've only got one episode to go until we are halfway through season 2.
I know, we're absolutely flying through this. I keep forgetting that it's an 8-episode season, and then I remember it, and I'm sad because it means we have less Dark to watch than I thought I did.
Yeah, true. Okay, so let's get into a new segment.
Oh. Drum roll, please.
I don't know what it is, but when I kiss you, it's like I'm kissing my brother.
All right, so this segment was suggested by someone in the comments. I really should have remembered who suggested it. I'll give them credit next week for coming up with it. And they came up with the idea of us doing sort of looking at the family trees after revelations of certain characters being related. So, for example, this episode we learnt that Agnes and Noah are brother and sister. So now we can sort of talk about, well, who's related to who then? Because we know that Agnes is Tronta's mom, or at least that's what it's been presented as so far. So as well as that, this segment we're going to call, based on the fact that Jonas and Marta sort of had a little thing going, and they're also aunt and nephew, we're going to call this segment, another commenter suggested we call it Wincest.
God.
As in Vinden incest. So So Conrad's not comfortable with that, but
No, it's fine. It's a great name. Thank you, whoever suggested it.
yeah. Anthony and Konrad's journey through Wincest. So basically, this week we could have so I don't know sort of how the structure of this segment's going to go. We're not sure. You might have noticed we don't have a what the dub this week. There wasn't anything good, but there will be whenever there is. But anyway, this segment. Well, I'm just going to throw this out there to begin with, right? What I realized is if Agnes is Tronta's mom, that means that Noah is Ulrich's great uncle.
Yes. Yep.
That's one thing.
Yes.
That's
well,
interesting.
yeah. So the whole it basically means that the entire sort of time loop continues to be tied up in that Nielsen family. I think because we know that Jonas is obviously. Well, hold on. I'm not going to be able to nail down the exact relationships. So Mikkel is Jonas's dad. So that makes Ulrich his grandfather, which makes Tronta his great grandfather, which would make Noah his
Agnes's great
great
uncle.
Great uncle. Would it be is it something like that. But so basically they all continue to be Nielsen's as it appears at the moment.
Yeah, so that's a good question actually. Like we don't know what Noah's last name is, or we don't even know if Noah's real name is Noah because he was given that name. We don't know if that was at birth. We know that Adam gave him the name, but we don't know when it was. So Agnes is Agnes Nielsen, but what's Noah's name is sort of the, you know what I mean?
The thing that I don't understand about their relationship is why she lied about him being her husband if they have no relationship with each other.
Okay, so now that you know that they're brother and sister, I can sort of be a bit more open about this, I think. At this stage in the show, I still didn't think that she was lying about that. I just thought that the show, like, I did think at that time, well, we're still going to meet someone, maybe not a preacher, but we're going to meet someone who fits that description to a certain amount that is Tronta's father. And that the show was just taking liberties to lead us down a rabbit hole. But what she was saying still had elements of truth within it. Like, she wasn't literally, like, pretending to Doris that Agnes was, that Noah was her husband.
Yeah, I think in my head I'm thinking, okay, she is pretending she had a husband because having a child out of wedlock in the 50s was frowned upon. But I wonder whether her and Noah did actually get married, because they obviously grew up in the cult of Adam or whatever, so no one actually knew who they were, and they got
Jeez, that's taken.
Yeah, exactly. I've gone in a different direction with this. Whether they did actually get married, so that Noah's surname is also Nielsen, and Agnes took it when she married him, even though they were actually brother and sister. That's kind of what I'm thinking in my head, that Noah is also a Nielsen. But I will admit that is me working backwards from my everyone is a Nielsen theory to try and fit that square peg.
The thing is, if your new theory that Adam, your new couple of theories that Adam is Jonas is one of your theories. Yeah. And you're also so if that's true, and then your other theory that Agnes and Noah are the children of Adam. That would mean that they're the children of Jonas, which means they're Nielsen.
Yes, yeah, exactly. Like, I mean, that's partially where that.
So you don't really need to explain away the idea. Like, you don't have to. You don't really have to have a. Your theories accommodate the everyone's a Nielsen thing. You don't actually have to try and get why she was pretending Noah was her husband, or did they get married or something, even though they're brother and sister.
That is true. Yeah.
You don't really need to do that.
I'm operating on the assumption that I might have misheard that thing in episode 1, and maybe Noah was taken in by Adam. So I'm basically covering my bases and coming at the everyone as a Nielsen theory from every possible angle here to make sure that it makes sense. But so far, all the important people are either Tiedemans or Nielsens, it feels like.
Okay, I've got a question for you. Does finding out that Agnes and Noah are brother and sister, does that make you make a conclusion on your Marta is Agnes theory?
I still don't know about that. I feel like Marta's going to get involved in time travel.
Because I think you also had a theory that Marta wasn't Ulrich and Katarina's daughter.
I did, yeah. That was based on the when they were going through the Ariadne stuff, and she was talking about how her father was the creator of the labyrinth, which to me would more obviously point at Adam as her father. But, you know, maybe her just being related to Adam is enough to kind of, for that metaphor to hold up. But I feel like she's got to travel through time, and I feel like the fact that she hasn't popped up in another timeline yet, but there is a mysterious brown-haired woman who is involved in this, still makes me think she might be Marta. But I mean, there's not really anything to confirm that beyond my previously established she has brown hair theory, which admittedly doesn't hold up to that much scrutiny.
Yeah, well, by that accounts, Claudia is Eric.
Well, I'm not ruling that out. I'm ruling nothing out. There was a part in my brain where I was like, what if? And this doesn't make any sense either. But there was a part of my brain where I was like, what if Noah and Agnes are Magnus and Marta? Despite the fact that Noah looks nothing like Magnus.
Yeah, we've already seen younger.
Yeah,
Noah
but
as well.
you know, plastic surgery exists.
Yeah, exactly. Well, Marta changed into the future
Yeah,
girl, so you know, it can happen.
exactly. Yeah.
Okay, awesome. I think I'm gonna do what the listeners probably don't want me to do, or maybe they do want me to do this. I'm gonna throw you a bone in terms of getting your theories going. Okay? And it's not a bone in any way in the right direction.
Okay, good.
But it's definitely a bone that at this point in the show, a lot of us had realized something, and I don't know if you did realize it.
Okay.
And I would like, because if you don't realize it now, it's gone. Like, it's not going to be referred to again, and you're just going to miss out on the next 15 episodes or whatever of theorizing about it. Right. So I think you'd prefer me to tell you. In the scene where Agnes first arrives in Vinden and she's talking to Egon and Doris in their house, they're talking to Agnes, and she mentions, they say, have you been to Vinden before or whatever, and she mentions that her grandmother is from Vinden.
Yeah.
So
I have had that in my head, trying to figure out who her grandmother
the fan base in general has spent a lot of time on that.
Yeah.
Question. We'll just say that. Yeah.
I like that is that has been in the back of my mind. Like, who is her grandmother for a while. I still don't know. I mean, I guess it could be like one of like Marta could be her grandmother or something, and she could be someone from the future. But that, like, Agnes's grandmother's identity continues to plague me, and I'm not sure who it could be. I think I might need to start drawing out like a family tree here to sort of see where all my theories position these people in it.
Yeah. You could definitely do that, and we talked about that before. How people had done that. It's funny that we got almost to this middle of season 2 before you thought that you might need to do that.
I mean, I'm not a fan of paperwork when it comes to my television watching. I'm a very, very lazy person, but maybe it's necessary.
Yeah. All right, so that was season 2, episode 3 of Dark, and I think that was a good one.
Yeah, it was a banger.
Very sad episode, but I think. Yeah, very sad episode, very sort of thoughtful episode, but I think we managed to get through it with a bit of levity. But, what are your final thoughts this week? Not about the episode in general, but just life, Konrad.
Everything's going great. The world's fine. Like, and we're like...
Yeah. The world's not going mad
Yeah,
at
the world
all.
isn't a dumpster fire, and we're all enjoying television and pretending the outside world doesn't exist. But yeah, no, I'm. This is in all seriousness, this is a lovely distraction from what would be an otherwise very stressful time. So I'm very grateful for it, and hopefully everyone's still enjoying watching along. I can't. This was I wouldn't say it was a downer of an episode. It was just a little bit more somber, a little bit more dramatic than the others. But I can't wait to see where we're going. I've got thoughts about where Noah's going from here, and I can't wait to see if they're right or not.
Awesome. All right, guys. So make sure you subscribe to the YouTube channel. Subscribe on podcasting apps if you want to listen to us that way. And apart from that, we'll be back on Saturday with a question and answers video. If you want to leave a comment on this video, on my pinned comment, we can answer those questions for you for episode, what would that be? 16.5, I think.
Yes.
Yeah. So that'll be on next Saturday after this. So there we go. I think we've only got one more thing to say, Konrad.
I'll let you lead off.
Goodbye.
Goodbye.